ahead and get started because it's 7:15, and we know more people may be arriving, and that's fine. We want to welcome anyone who comes along, but we also want to stick to our schedule. So thank you so much for coming to our second Regarding Denver Forum, and thank you in advance to our great panelists who have volunteered their time to share their expertise and insights with us tonight. I'm Annie Levinsky. I'm the Executive Director of Historic Denver, and as our organization celebrates 45 years this year, we've been reflecting a lot on the role that our organization has played in Denver over the last 4 decades. But we have also been thinking a lot about the role that we want to play in the decades to come and shaping the city for what it will be like in the future. Part of our mantra is about being in it for the long haul and recognizing that the decisions that are made today will be with us for generations. So as the city experiences this most recent growth spurt, there have been a lot of questions, not just about historic buildings and what may be lost, but also about the quality and character of what is being built in their place. Last month, the Urban Land Institute hosted a special panel addressing that topic, and our panelist Mickey was at that as well. The title was Denver is Booming, but is Design Quality Keeping Pace? But what I thought they did that was really interesting is they surveyed the audience before the event and got a lot of interesting feedback about the reasons people think that that may be the case. And one of the comments they read really struck me, and it was that an individual felt that we weren't getting the quality we deserved because Denver didn't know what it wanted, that the city was too undefined. And we had actually selected this topic for tonight before that event, but it's the perfect lead-in. Just as in our personal lives, it's impossible to find ourselves without reflecting on our past. And so here tonight, our panelists will help us understand what makes Denver, Denver. I know I've given the question a lot of thought, and I hope you weighed in with some of your thoughts in the activities in the lobby. And if you didn't get a chance to do that, please do so on your way out. I do want to take a brief moment for those of you who are attending a Historic Denver event for the first time to talk a little bit about who we are. Historic Denver is a nonprofit advocacy organization founded in 1970. We like to think of ourselves as the organization for people who love Denver, and it's our mission to honor the dynamic between the old and new places so that our city thrives as a vibrant community with a unique identity. Sometimes this does mean doing traditional work like maintaining the Molly Brown House, which we own and take care of and love, but it also means thinking about and having meaningful conversations about how our city changes. In addition to hosting these events, we are involved in all sorts of conversations about Denver's built environment. We serve on the National Western Stock Show Advisory Committee, committees about the 16th Street Mall. We're leading an effort related to City Park, and we're consulting with several neighborhood groups that are pursuing historic designation or conservation district status. None of these efforts are purely about the past. They're all about the future and about defining how our city will change. In addition to tonight's forum, we will be hosting 5 additional forums throughout this next academic year, each month through March with a break in December. The dates are on the flyer, which hopefully many of you saw on social media, or you may have seen it out on the food table in the front. Feel free to grab that. It's also up here on the screen in that red box. Facebook is a great way to keep in touch with Historic Denver and find out what events are coming up. So if you haven't liked us, I encourage you to do so. Or I also encourage you to become a member of Historic Denver. Our members get regular email updates and news about what's happening both on our advocacy issues, our educational sessions, and events like tonight. We are also on Twitter, and so we encourage you tonight to also, if you're into tweeting and want to tweet some of the things you hear or comments, the hashtag is REDenver, or hashtag Historic Denver as well. A quick note on procedure. Each of our panelists has been asked to present 10 slides in 10 minutes so that you'll hear a variety of perspectives on what makes Denver, Denver. Because it's a relatively big audience, and we know there's going to be a lot of great questions, we are asking that you write your questions on note cards as you think of them throughout the presentations. And then staff will run around quickly at the end of the 4 panelists to collect those so that our moderator can read them to the panelists and we can have some fun hearing their additional thoughts. I would now like to introduce Dennis Humphreys, who's the moderator for our panel tonight. In addition to serving as Historic Denver board member, Dennis is the principal at the respected firm of Humphreys Poley Architects. He's the past chair of the Denver Landmark Commission, the vice chair of the Civic Center Conservancy, and a founding member of the Denver Architectural Foundation, in addition to being an award-winning architect. So, Dennis?
Well, thank you. It's great to see you all tonight for our second round of doing this. And we really have an all-star group tonight. It's just a privilege to be up here with people that I personally admire, and I can call them all great friends because they've collaborated in one way or another with me on many things. So we're going to jump right into it, and we picked these four because of their diversity of their skill sets, their backgrounds, their knowledge of the city, their passion for the city. Well, I guess that's a common because they are all very passionate about Denver. But our first speaker is Dick Farley. Dick Farley is an architect. He's a fellow of the American Institute of Architects. He is, for 8 years, he was a principal of Civitas, which is a landscape urban design firm here in Denver. He is now an urban designer practicing on his own. And he has been a great friend over the years. He served as Deputy Director of Denver Planning Office for 13 years or so, 10 years. And he's very knowledgeable about what makes Denver so special. I think one of the unique things about Dick is he's also an artist. And he is very skilled at coordinating his artistic talents and his urban design. And I think what you'll see tonight is a taste of that. And I personally bought one of Dick's pieces of art a couple of months ago, and I have it proudly displayed in my loft. And so he's truly an extraordinarily talented, but most importantly, extraordinarily knowledgeable about what Denver is all about. So please give a great hand to Dick Farley.
I see you took your bow tie off, and so did I. And so, my take is just that of an urban designer, an architect. The physical character of Denver, its buildings and its places. And I've used my sketches of Denver over the last 35 years or so as my own personal record. Well, the first one is really what I would title is Denver is where the east peters out and the west begins. And it's the last of the eastern or midwestern cities, in my view, at that end of that long, slow climb of prairie, emulating the street-lined trees, lush parks and parkways that Tina will talk about, City Beautiful movement. And yet it still has a practical Jeffersonian grid to it. It has no ancient winding paths like Boston or other old cities. It's a conjunction of the high plains and mountains, ranches, cattle, big sky, big storms, strong sun. So you can see the big sky with Denver. This is the Pawnee Buttes, ranches and mountains. And then this is sort of just a little drawing of diagram of street-lined trees, lined with trees. The rise of Denver's wealth coincides with maybe the first American architectural style, the Richardsonian architecture. Again, simple forms, Romanesque, restrained ornament, and given the dry climate and the fire danger of Denver, certainly in the early years, and maybe still, masonry and the use of brick and stone was promoted and, in fact, legislated. This is Stoneman's Row, and this is one of those great mansions in Capitol Hill. Strong sun and strong shadows. Architecture that plays with sun and shadow, I think, is Denver. It may not be uniquely Denver, but it's certainly Denver. And the shade and protection of street trees is more than just simply an Eastern convention, in my view. This is Sepphoris Gate in City Park. These are some sketches of houses that, sort of really with overhangs, shadow and shade to catch that light. There were some building types that always struck me. A lot of these sketches are back in the 1980s, when I more or less first came to Denver. One building type is the Denver squares. Now, again, it's not unique, but here in Denver, it's a brick masonry block with roof hats, hip and gable roofs, strong eaves, and overhang. And then, once in a while you find one that's stretched out, that's horizontal, almost radian. But Denver's not a radian prairie city. The mountains emphasize the vertical, and the prairie emphasizes the horizontal. Another set of building types that struck me when I first arrived was the one-story row houses and little duplexes. They're the first kind of workforce housing that Denver had, and the one-story townhouses have an interesting sort of light, lacy, wood-framed porches that are propped up against the solid brick and masonry walls. There's a number of these around town. I really love these things. And, deep overhangs, shade and shadow. This is just a wonderful duplex. And then this is a mixed-use building from early 1900s with stone lintels and sills that catch the light and cast shadows. The commercial and industrial buildings, again, carry this forward. They're sturdy masonry, simple, not much ornament, but they're proud of the work that goes on within it. They spent some money on these. This is the McGinty-McPhee building, or the Pittsburgh Plate Glass building. Piggly Wiggly building, and then this storage building. I can never understand why this just simply isn't renovated. And then this is the Breckenridge Brewery now. That was sketched when it was a vacant building, and there were rail cars parked out in front of it. And then, of course, the planes get back into Denver with the grain elevators. Dana Crawford's Hungarian flour mill is a wonderful reuse of one of these. This one I sketched, and it's been torn down. I wish, Dana had been able to save that. Again, the solid forms with lacy things propped up against them. Then there's a couple of places. Now, Denver has a wonderful set of neighborhoods, and so I can't go into this very much, but there are two places that I think exemplify Denver, and this is one of them. This is lower downtown, Union Station, and the Ice House. This sketch was in the mid-'80s when there was simply a parking lot between the Ice House and Union Station. This one sketched just about several weeks ago, where the Ice House is still there and strong, but we now have these wonderful plazas and new buildings around framing the Union Station. Down here, this is Wazee Street. At the end of Wazee was a grain elevator in the 80s. Now it's Coors Field, giving activity and an edge to lower downtown. Then the other place, obviously, is Civic Center. Tina may talk more about this, but the Civic Center is probably one of the, if not the largest, intact Beaux-Arts Civic Center in the country. It's Mayor Spear's effort to bring Denver into the family of Midwestern or Eastern cities through their culture, through the Beaux-Arts movement. My sketches sort of focus not so much on the space, but on the towers and around the space, the Capitol building, City County Building, Central Press, and First Baptist. Sorry. Mind freeze. Then I asked myself, what new architecture embodies qualities of Denver? And these may be controversial, but I like the main public library by Michael Graves. To me, it's almost like a big Capitol Hill mansion, and at the same time, it has a sort of reflecting a church tower, and the round drums are even like a flour mill. And then the other is the History Colorado Museum by David Treiba. Again, it's the strong overhang, the boldness of the structure, the shadows, and the golden stone. And I still like the little Howard Lorton galleries. Where it's a building that has so much presence for what it actually sells. It's brick and with this wonderful corner bay surrounded by concrete. And I hope someday that it might actually be turned into a museum itself. So those are my choices, and I'm sticking by them. Thank you.
Well, that was really terrific. We were not fortunate enough to see these in advance, and so to sit here and watch that progress is just tremendous. I think there's a book waiting to happen here, Dick, and yeah, so we need somebody to write it, huh? All right, well, the next speaker, and so everybody write down your questions, and they may be in general to the entire panel or maybe to a specific panelist, so don't forget to do that as the course. So the next speaker is Tina Bishop, and Tina Bishop is a founding partner of Mundus Bishop, a landscape architectural firm, highly respected, based here in Denver. I got to know Tina when she was chair of the Landmark Commission, and I first came in on the Landmark Commission, and I was just awestruck by her ability to navigate through difficult issues and get us all on the same page and move us forward. Many of Denver's great spaces have been strongly influenced by Tina and her firm's work, and particularly Civic Center, where she was the author of the master plan and has been responsible for overseeing it and shepherding it through a number of developments, of having gone from being designated one of the top endangered places in Colorado to receiving its national landmark status. So we have a lot to owe thanks to Tina for all her great efforts and contributions to the city. So please welcome Tina Bishop, ASLA. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I think my slides are backwards. So you may be looking these in reverse. Well, thanks anyway for letting me come tonight and being able to share my view of the character of our great city through, did I do that? No, that was a joke. Dennis was joking. That first one is backwards. Thank you. We'll start there. The last one was not backwards, so that's good. So once again, thank you for letting me share my view of the character of our city. The framework of Denver and our great city is an interconnected system of parkways and boulevards, and this system really knits our city together into a cohesive whole. It links our characteristic neighborhoods, parks, and civic and institutional spaces, Built primarily between the years of 1871 and 1950, this system really does create our city's aesthetic and our city beautiful. The result is the planning of many of our early visionary city leaders, everyone from Territorial Governor Evans through Mayor Sopris and Spear, and also the creativity of a number of notable local and national designers. Not surprisingly, many of the early plans for the city were subjects of great controversy and opposition at their time, but luckily visionary folks prevailed. And a few facts about our system I think are notable is that 35 of our streets are designated parkways and boulevards by city ordinance. These are as diverse as University and Spear Boulevard, Claremont Parkway, a number of other parkways, including the Majestic, Monaco, and East 17th Avenue parkways. Many are listed on the National Register, and several are within historic districts of the Denver Landmark Commission. The characteristics of these parkways really give our city its defining character. Its system was designed and continues to enhance development, beautify the city, and improve livability. Much of this comes from distinctive roadway and street cross-sections, parkways with divided medians, and very generous divided medians, and boulevards that are gracious tree-lined streets. Trees and vegetation, of course, are strong defining features. They create that continuous green that we're so familiar with, and linking our green spaces to green spaces. Many of you may not know, but topography and orientation are also some key characteristics. One example is Park Avenue, which is aligned along a commanding view of Long's Peak. Building setbacks are one of the characteristics of our parkway system. They provide sort of those broad streets that are wonderful to walk down and create scenic drives. One characteristic I think is really important is the idea of this building setback. And traditionally, they have actually been build-to lines, where the street and the building came together and the front of the building lined up along a continuous line, creating that characteristic. It was nice to see, Dick, that you talked about Civic Center. Our remarkable system of parks includes many regional and neighborhood parks designed by notable landscape architects with buildings and structures designed by renowned architects. Just like Denver Civic Center, they represent the lasting nature of our city building, offering durable and well-appointed details, designs of their time, with cues to compatible changes for today. And most importantly, they are really wonderful spaces to gather, to recreate, and to enjoy. When I think of Denver Civic Center these days, the word I think of most and importantly is reinvestment. That the park has really been reinvested in on so many levels. That the characteristics that it also conveys is civic engagement, empowerment, gathering, and just general civicness. Dick defined how those buildings describe the space, but the improvements to the park itself physically has really elevated it as a masterpiece of the Beaux-Arts style of park design with the timeless neoclassical buildings and structures. These are all qualities that last today through rehabilitation and reactivation, making it just as relevant as it was in 1918 when first designed by Edward Bennett. When I think of Denver parks, I think of Cheeseman in particular. It really does represent sort of those quintessential values of what a master landscape park is for the city of Denver. This park evolved from 1858 through 1910, from undeveloped land to the final resting place of many of our city's Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish community members, and eventually became this renowned public park. The early park, not surprisingly, was a result of the city's rapid growth. In the 1880s, citizens rallied for the development of public open space, just like we do today. They wanted something of a high quality to replace the weedy landscapes that they were used to. From a physical perspective, Cheeseman Park has a wonderful scale that I think is evident in most of our regional Denver parks. It has an amazing arrangement of spaces by the original landscape architect Reinhard Schutze, with a play of large to small spaces, design of open lawns contrasted by enclosed spaces. It creates a wonderful sense of formal and informality and a really great experiential movement. The topographic manipulations and orchestration of views in the park are particularly oriented to the mountains, but also are oriented to and between spaces. And if you're a user, you recognize all of those qualities. The formidable architecture of Marion and Norton, the iconic Cheeseman Pavilion, is probably one of the greatest and most iconic structures in the city, and really does play to that sense of longevity that we need within our park spaces. And all, of course, this is experienced through the classic hourglass-shaped road and the now newly revitalized trail system. All of these physical qualities give Cheeseman Park its wonderful character, but my favorite characteristic of the park is just how inviting it is as a landscape space. One of those things, the qualities comes about as being sort of this urban park, and then it's a mixture, a very true mixture of uses and spaces for outdoor recreation and activity. It's very different. It's a multiple use park in the purest sense. Very different from a suburban model of park that segregates recreational uses. It really creates a place where people want to gather. And all of these characteristics, I think, really do speak to the better designed and the more wonderful parts of our park system. A discussion of the character of our city, and I apologize for the washed out graphics, but a discussion of the character of our city is really not complete without mentioning our Denver Mountain Park system. In the early 1900s, when Mayor Spear and his civic colleagues crafted their bold City Beautiful vision for the urban core, they set on an equally aggressive campaign, and that was to acquire and develop the other half of that system. The other half is our Denver Mountain Park system. More than 14,000 acres of 22 developed parks, 24 conservation wilderness areas located across 4 counties. These are places that are unrivaled in their spectacular setting and variety of experiences, with a very distinctive characteristic of design, of rustic naturalistic design. The system continues to offer those qualities for which it was designed as a naturalistic place with rustic structures and buildings. Many of these began in 1912 with the work of the city and Jules Jacques Benedict, and they continued through the 1930s with the work of the CCC and NPS and many local designers, including, of course, Burnham Hoyt for Red Rocks, but also E.J. Mann and S.R. DeBoer. These parks express the ideals of subordinating development to natural and scenic character. It was a design approach that focused on landscape preservation and harmonization of built features, and it remains as distinctive today as it did at that time. It wouldn't go without saying that our park system didn't really stop as we moved into the 30s and the 40s, but it continues on. And the design of the system has evolved since these works that I showed you previously. These newer contributions I see as reinventions and reconnections to the system. Bobby Yar Park, shown here in the slides, is one example of these types of parks, originally designed in 1982. It does create some interesting qualities that have been brought forward. It's a memorial park, but it also offers a respite and breathing space, just like Cheeseman. It has a scale and a series of spaces that are reminiscent of the commanding spaces at Cheeseman Park, but in a different sort of design style. It too focuses on providing views and orientation, and it creates an orchestrated experience and also offers unparalleled beauty. One thing that I like about it most is it brings some new ideals to parks within the city. It's an homage, I'm over time. It's an homage to our social and cultural heritage in a setting of natural beauty, in this case, our shortgrass prairie and stream corridors. I wanted to leave just a few parting thoughts, and some of the things I think as a basic characteristics that I find important is that from our Parkway and Boulevard system, we do have a great broad street system that we can learn back and look at, a continuous green, or more accurately, a livable quality to the whole street experience. From Civic Center and Cheeseman, a commitment to durable and timeless design and civic engagement. For the mountain parks, get out and enjoy these natural places. And lastly, let's not be afraid to think of reworks for today or innovation. I do believe we should truly embrace those and manage them holistically as we have done in the past. Thank you.
if you've not taken the opportunity to go out to Bobby R. Park, I would strongly encourage it. It's a great example of bringing those principles into a contemporary park. And it was most recently featured on the cover article of Landscape Architecture magazine. So, you know, we truly do have a great talented landscape architect here. Thank you for your work. Our next speaker is Mary Chandler, and many of us remember Mary as the voice of architecture and art in Denver when she worked for the Rocky Mountain News prior to its being abandoned. She came to us from southern Florida, Miami, in 1984. She's, I believe, a graduate to the University of Missouri Journalism School, which is a highly acclaimed school. I got to know Mary for 13 years. We worked together on putting a guidebook together to Denver's architecture, and it was a intriguing and long experience that ended up in publishing the book in 2001. And so we had so much fun that we decided to do it again in 2013, and I think we spent 13 months rather than 13 years. And so both those books are on sale at a tattered cover right next door here, as well as she's been very responsible for initiating a number of other books and articles on Denver art and architecture. And so, Mary, we miss you greatly every Sunday. And we hope that we'll find a way to come back. She is currently in the communications marketing area at GH Phipps Construction and is doing a great job there for them. And so welcome, please, Mary Chandler to the podium.
Oh, there I am. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Historic Denver. And thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. I miss me, too, but not every day. There were hazards with that job, but the guidebook taught me so much about Denver. I learned so much, and it was a great excuse to do a lot of research and drive around for 40,000 miles and look at buildings. As Dennis said, I moved here in September of '84, and okay. So this is my Denver, and it's the Denver that's helped shape the last 30 years of my life. I had the opportunity of working on those two guidebooks, and the black and white photos in this presentation are from those books. The rest are by me, and they're sort of fuzzy, because I'm a writer and not a photographer. But anyway, Civic Center is the very first thing I think of when I think of Denver. It's the civic and cultural heart of this city, and some of our finest buildings and cultural amenities reside here. I love it, but like many people, I worry about it. On the left is a photo that I shot from inside the McNichols building, which is one of the great saves of this century. I mean, it really is, and I know it's closed now and more work is going to be done. But it's a great place to see an art show and look out at all these views of these buildings. On the right is Civic Center in its most formal glory. Millions of words have been written about it. Hundreds of meetings have been held. I have all the notes to prove it in my attic. Numerous plans have been floated, including recent suggestions to remove 14th Avenue Parkway and add beer to the space. My suggestions remain the same: maintain it, police it, realize that there are generational differences in perceiving how a formal ritual space should be used. Also, it's not a revenue stream. I loved covering the construction of DIA and the public art program there, for good and for bad. After the news left me, I was sorry I could not write about the choice of Santiago Calatrava to design the long-delayed hotel and a great bridge. I just rolled my eyes when his relationship with the city ended, and he took his signature white scheme with him, and the bridge was scuttled for budget reasons. It's the same kind of loss as when Stephen Hull no longer was needed to design the courthouse, though that building was rescued by a firm based in Denver. I really believe that Denver tends to turn its back on talent. And I'm not just talking about the big out-of-town names here. Local architects seem to have lost ground too, and I'm sorry the new hotel blocks a view of the airport and that the bridge was lost to the budgeting process. Oh my. My idea of my Denver came to me as I was sitting in rush hour traffic on South Colorado Boulevard. It's part of my Denver. I don't live there. I live in North Cap Hill. It's part of my Denver, and I'm sure it's part of yours sometimes too, for too long a time. I'm sitting there and I wondered how this new Glendale 180 development would affect people and traffic and emergency vehicles. Then I crept toward one of my favorite places, Burns Park. It's pure visual relief. It's a quirky place that speaks of the innovative spirit this city has encouraged for 150 years. Those sculptures were never intended to last, and some have been lost, but others have been maintained. I love that it gives a visual break at the intersection of 3 busy streets. And that's a little parking pad there that you can pull into. The Health Sciences Center at 8th/9th and Colorado. When I covered the fate of the buildings at the old CU Health Sciences Center, it was quite painful, not just because the City Council refused to designate as landmarks 2 distinguished Victor Hornbein Ed White buildings, but because it was such a waste of resources, materials, and labor, and I think they call that embedded energy. The new design for this new neighborhood has evolved in a positive way, but at what cost? A couple of weeks ago, there was a lot of crowing about blowing up the bio-research lab building. It may not have been the greatest, but I'm amazed there could not be some way to repurpose it somehow. We're so smart. Why not? So on the right, in the middle of the photo, there's a big mound of rubble. It was bigger from Colorado, but I couldn't pull over anywhere. On the left, excuse me, is the pharmacy building. It's from the mid-90s. It's boarded up and empty, and it'll be gone, along with a lot more. I understand that the city changes and new neighborhoods can emerge, that so many people want only the big, new, bright and shiny things, but I hate waste and degradation, and I don't know, it's really problematic to not be writing about this anymore. One of the many benefits the Denver Art Museum's Hamilton building brought to Denver was a renewed interest in the early 1970s museum building designed by Gio Ponti and James Sudler. It's magnificent. It gleams. Check out the stairwells and you'll find colorful glass tiles that are just like the gray ones that are on the skin, that form the skin. Talk about an innovative city, a building by Gio Ponti with Jim Sudler. When I moved here, I was taken aback that this place, right in the middle of nowhere, had people who pushed for this to be built. It still surprises me. The good news is the Denver Art Museum is working on a plan to do a major upgrade of this building, which understandably needs new systems and some attention. This timeless building will be given a new life to be completed by 2021 when it turns 50. Oh my, what have I done? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lost. Or this is lost. There it is. Park Central. When I moved here, I spent a lot of time learning the history of the city and how downtown, lower downtown, the Central Platte Valley, and other areas developed, were reshaped, and reborn. I checked out the news clip files on the Skyline Urban Renewal Project and spent hours after work learning about the project and looking at the aerial photos showing dozens of cleared blocks. It was pretty sobering. The old Skyline Park is now gone, or it's so changed that it might as well be gone. But Park Central is one of the first projects built on that big, vast open swath of land during the Skyline Project. It's a success story. It manages to be pure and foreboding at the same time. But the design, linking office towers, is as new as today. The original interior circulation has been reconfigured, which helped take care of some confusing elements. Excuse me. But for me, Park Central is another reminder that good buildings make good sense. Remember the Y2K panic? Did you buy bottled water and fret over your computer and buy cans of beans? What I remember about that era is the debut of the Millennium Bridge, which began as a stunning pedestrian device and ended up as a symbol for a brand new neighborhood that seemed to come out of nowhere. The old black hole of the Central Platte Valley seemed to change overnight, but it actually took a while between the demolition of the old bridges and viaducts and the resolution of the neighborhood as it stands today. Yes, it is an upscale kind of place, and yes, Commons Park, though I love it, has begun to have some problems apparently. But the buildings, for the most part, are fine, and it's a perfect backyard for the development surrounding the new Union Station project. Score 1 for good planning. Oh, uh-oh. Well, uh-oh. What have I done? I'm sorry. There, So another new neighborhood is being born. When my husband and I decided to buy a house in the late 1980s, and houses were really went for a song back then, we looked all over the place, including the Highlands neighborhoods. There were plenty of good deals and great old homes, but the renovation costs, we just couldn't handle it. If only I knew then what I know now, I would still live there. When I drive through Highlands now, it is sometimes difficult to understand what I'm seeing. The infill projects have multiplied to the point where that word no longer really applies. It's a huge rebirth, and you all have been there and seen it. It's at once innovative, but sometimes the designs tend to start looking the same, cookie cutter. One of the buildings, though, that caught my eye as the guidebook update was being developed is a home called the Shield House. That's it on the left, in its own simple purity. It's absolutely beautiful. Just the right volume for the neighborhood, not too tall, not too short, and quite distinctive, but not garishly overdone. I drove back through recently, marveling at the immense amount of construction. So I swung by the Shield House, and it really looks different in context, and it sort of made me happy, because I'd seen so much stuff going on. On one side is a large 3-townhouse development whose garages empty onto a big concrete pad to one side. On the other side is an older home, less tall than the Shield House. What interested me is that there is still a mix going on here, and the Shield House stands out, but in a good way. Oh, that's not even me. Sorry. Okay. Another new neighborhood, but here is where people are really keeping an eye on design. This would be Curtis Park. It has 8 historical districts within it. There are some larger apartment buildings here and there, but for the most part, infill homes are hewing to scale and volume and respect their much older neighbors. These two on the left are in the 3000 block of California. The newer home is on the left of that photo, and it's the darker one, and the older home, it's not a big fussy Victorian, is on the right. There's thought behind this, though, and it works. And driving those blocks, to me, is always a pleasure. And then on the right is one of the wings of the L-shaped Merchants Row townhomes. And what I really find interesting about this building, like many of the homes in Curtis Park, the accent here is on the vertical with the traditional brick enlivened by glass and metal. Curtis Park is a survivor. It has battled absentee landlords and tear-downs and neglect. And it's survived because the people who live there believe in its future as well as its past. Finally, this has nothing to do with architecture, but everything to do with culture. The Scientific and Cultural Facilities District started with an election in 1988. I covered that election. This organization has given us innovative and painless way of raising funds for cultural and scientific organizations. when I covered it, I must have sat through a million meetings over the years. It was a wonk's heaven, all this number stuff. Since the district was born, that tax has raised close to $900 million. The SCFD has helped give stability to our cultural organizations and supported growth and experimentation. There again are discussions about how to split up the take. That's nothing new, but what is new is an influx of new residents to the seven-county area who know nothing about this tax and what it has done to make our cultural life so much better. The district goes to a reauthorization vote in November 2016. In the past, the generous people of Colorado and people in Colorado are generous. They've approved it, even in 1988 when the economy really sucked. Coloradans are generous, but if they do not know what this is and why it's important, our region is in trouble. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. We've missed you. So thanks for those words. So our last presenter this evening is Mickey Zeppelin. And I have this pre-printed material on Mickey and some of this stuff I've never known about Mickey, but as I've known Mickey for a long time. He truly is the definition of an urban pioneer. Mickey grew up here in Denver and I know attended and was a graduate of North High School, but he really was one who was instrumental in Lodo. He then, when Lodo started to become successful, moved to the Golden Triangle. And when the Golden Triangle got successful, he moved to what is currently his current passion of taxi. And he is, tomorrow is the groundbreaking of the Source Hotel, which is his newest and latest creation with his son, Kyle. But Mickey is truly been a very important piece of what has made Denver successful over the years. I got to work with Mickey in the Golden Triangle on the creation of the master plan design review committee, and I actually live in one of Mickey's creations, the Cadillac Lofts, the transformation, one of the first transformations of a warehouse into a residential development here in Denver. Mickey has a very different view of how things take place in Denver. He's always critical, he's always questioning, and he's generally always right. But it sometimes takes us a while to understand that because of his unique perspective and planning. And the thing that really caught my attention here in your bio is it said that your grandfather was a junk man, and so at an early age, you learned how to look at all these found objects in very different fashion and with a creative eye. And that's what Mickey has really done. He's taken a lot of junk and he's turned them into things that are very, very special to us all. So please welcome Mickey Zeppelin.
Dennis, can you hear me? Since I'm the elder statesman here and don't understand all the technology and prefer to sit rather than stand, then I'll be here. I think what makes Denver Denver are the people. And as I look at representing Denver, each people are what makes the place. And I think that as we look through these slides, it's always the people, the person who really is the instrument which really makes the place either from its initial creation to its use. So I'm starting with what makes Denver Denver, and what we start with is the gift of nature. Denver is located in a very special place. We have the mountains as the background. We have fabulous views, which hopefully we will not do away with as we build higher and higher. We have great access to the mountains, providing the outdoors, the skiing, and industry that, like water and mining. And we have fabulous weather, we have the seasons, and nature is really the inspiration for what Denver is. Slide. The other part of what makes Denver is the river. It's the lifeblood. If it weren't for the rivers here, Denver could well be a desert. It flows through the city. It creates the pathways for the streets, an outline really as to how the city goes. It provides the greenways, the parks, and when you look at Spear Boulevard, we talk about the boulevards, or Cherry Creek, or the gardens around West High School. It's the river that really sets the stage for what Denver is. And in the future, the river will take a more prominent position. It will definitely be the basis for our new parks, our new recreation. We see it here in Riverfront Park. We'll see it all through the north part of the city, and we're seeing it in the south. So the river is another key element that makes Denver, Denver. Next. The other element is, again, another historic element, which is the railroads. Denver is here because of the railroads. Had the railroads decided to go to Wyoming, then we would not have Denver as Denver. It goes more than through the railroads. It's really, we're talking about transportation, which is a key element of the city. Part of that is what we've seen is too many cars, and we are basically responding to the transportation with a commuter rail, new methods of transportation, Uber, cars to go, and going back to really our old forms in terms of bikes and walking. And it's possible that Denver can be the leader in providing the new forms of transportation. And Union Station, next. Union Station is the example of the new railroad technology, or now where all of the transit really meets, and it's really a critical element recognizing transportation and its various alternatives in Denver. Next. Another key element that made Denver, Denver, and continues to do it, are the schools. Great effort was made to create beautiful schools, East High School, South High School, the Dora Moore, and these older schools. And it's more than just the architecture, it's the concept of education. It was an early part of Denver, and really it was an opportunity to teach children and people to look at the details, to basically be conscious of beauty, but moreover, to really provide opportunity. And we've continued to do that with the universities, the Denver School of the Arts, the Denver Tech School. Basically, all of this is part of what I think makes Denver, Denver, a consciousness of education. Unfortunately, at times in the past, we've kind of not provided equal opportunity in that area, but we're trying to catch up. Next, I think a key element of what makes Denver is the neighborhoods. In looking around, I could go almost anywhere in the city and see neighborhoods with great houses, all brick, sidewalks, lots of landscaping, tree lawns. And it was really the basis of community, and I think that's one of the key elements of Denver, is the community, and the community really led to the parks, the libraries. And again, in looking at houses, you can go back to, as Dick illustrated, some of the early mansions with the details. And part of that was really people looking, and part of it is we got out of our cars, we were able to see that detail, we respected the craftsmen, and hopefully that will come back. We still have a long ways to go in terms of affordability. I think there's a couple new projects like La Alamo, which has really made an effort to create affordable housing in an attractive way. And it's those neighborhoods that really make the city. Next. This is the Equitable Building. And this is a icon of the past when office buildings were really, again, part of what we tried to show people in terms of craftsmanship, in terms of caring, in terms of making the workplace really inspirational. And the building really was in an era that really passed after this, basically. During this period of time, the Daniels and Fishers Tower was the highest building in the city, the tallest. And subsequently, we started building the high-rises, which lacked the detail, which lacked the caring, which people quit looking at the exterior. The street became less active because people did not really make the effort to put commerce on the first floor. And this is the iteration, the high-rise was the era of the cubicles. We're now in a new era, which is really exciting, which is the collaborative space. And I'm happy to say that Taxi is part of it. Buildings like Industry, Galvanize, where collaboration really is the key. And I think that's a lot of what we're talking about these days, of people sharing. And whereas in the high-rises, it was largely cubicles, we're seeing moving to high-tech, from product. And a lot of new innovation is happening, but seeing how this changes is really critical. The next part is really the Cultural and Government Center. I think this is a fabulous demonstration of context. We have a variety of buildings. We have the Ponte building, we have the Libeskind building, we have a housing complex, we have the Michael Graves building, and somehow it all fits together. And the fact that you had architects, developers, the city, all looking on how to make this work together. You know, we now have the Still Museum and the administration building for the Denver Art Museum. And it's just, to me, one of the most exciting things to see how all of this kind of works together, and then put it with the governmental complex, and you create an area with a fabulous intensity, the ability for people to feel, to see, to be inspired by the arts, which is another key element of what I think Denver is promoting. And it could use some more recognition, really, in terms of the city's respect for this whole area. We use Union Station as the entertainment area, and this is really the cultural and governmental area. And I think that a better connection between the two of them would make a significant difference. The other area is really go back, that's fine, is the industrial. What you're looking at is the source building. And this slide illustrates two things. It's basically, it demonstrates an early history. This was an iron forge. It was supposedly a CF&I factory that basically created a lot of the steel work for the Brown Palace and other earlier buildings. It was then converted to the Source, which is a market, which I think is where the future is going in terms of these open markets. Again, people-oriented, people wanting to be together. But it also demonstrates the adaptive reuse of buildings. And it goes one step further by incorporating the market and creating the hotel. Between the two of them, the Source Marketplace will be expanded. And I'm happy to say that tomorrow we have our formal groundbreaking for the hotel. The concept of reuse is kind of something that I've been involved. I've worked with Larry Nelson here in terms of who's been the master in terms of reuse. And it's great to see the building, the number of buildings, the ice house, the Red Line, just a whole variety of buildings that are being reused. And I think that's what makes Denver, Denver. Next. We've heard a lot about the parks. I think we got a beautiful description of the park. The parks really, I think they're beautiful, but I think that the programming of the parks is critical. I think we've lost some of that. I used to go to the opera at Cheeseman Park. I think the original Spear Civic Center was the biggest city Christmas party where everybody gathered together. And I think that if you look at Wash Park, which people are running, walking, swimming, boating, it's fantastic. Parks really provide the outlet for people, and it's really the fun part of the city. And finally, we're talking about downtown. I know the mall has its critics, but the fact is that's the center of the city, and it certainly has a ways to go, and it needs to be the connecting link between Union Station, the Golden Triangle, and certainly the cultural, the music center, and the theater area. And this is the opportunity for the city to pull this all together. But it's really all about how do you make people enjoy life a little bit more. We're seeing a whole new generation who's into food and how we do food, and basically the arts, and where people can connect, and a place where generations can meet, and it's really the transition of the whole city. Last. Believe it or not, this is the stockyards in its early days, and I think it's illustrative of a lot of the things I'm talking about transportation, people meeting from all over, and it's an opportunity now to make sure that it continues to happen, and the education through the new bond issue and the collaboration with CSU and the study of water and agriculture and the environment. It really is where the future of Denver is. So my paid commercial is please support 2C. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. This is a very motivating and passionate presentation, and to all the panelists, Denver would not be where we're at today without your passion, your talents, and your commitment to making it a better city. So, yeah.